What's up everyone, James Lynch here. In today's video, I'm gonna look back on the highest income earners on MMA YouTube, and I'm gonna use a site called ViewStats. If you remember, I did a video on this last year on my channel. You can find it here, there, after you're done watching this video. And I had some people reach out when I did that video last year, and some people said that the numbers were a bit too high as far as how much they were earning. And then I had a few people reach out and say the numbers were low. And I did give a disclaimer in last video, and I'll do the same thing here. These numbers are not 100% accurate, nor do they count donations. So someone like MMA Guru, who does a lot of live content, that's not going to count those extra donations that he's gets. So just take this with a grain of salt. This is just kind of a fun video to look at some of the successful channels this past year. And unlike last year, I'm going to just stick with a top 20 list, and then I'll give some honorable mentions as well, or some other channels that that might have not gotten included in that top 20. So let's start first at number 20 with Full Mount MMA. You guys know them, one of the big YouTube channels on the news side of things based out of the US. According to ViewStats, they earned anywhere on the low end from 37,000 to 103,000 on the end there, as far as what they made this past year. 527,000 subscribers. So one of the bigger channels out there for news. You've probably seen them, so they come in at number 20. Next one we're going to look at here is on the top 20 list is going to be the Jackson podcast. Everyone knows that channel. They have a studio, they have guests. They haven't been around that long. That's why they only have, well, they have 310,000 subscribers, but their revenue is anywhere from 37,000 to 105,000 on that end. So just slightly higher than Full Mount MMA. Jackson podcast, again, everyone pretty familiar with them. No real surprises there. Okay, moving along, we're going to go to Daniel Cormier's channel, also based out of the US. You can see his revenue just slightly higher than Jackson's, 38,000 to 107,000. And one thing to keep in mind with Cormier's channel, you'll see the views have gone up. These other two, if you look here, they've gone down. And that's actually something I discovered when I was doing research for this. A lot of the channels have taken a hit, and I'll talk more about that at the end of this video, some of my thoughts on some of the channels there. But anyways, Daniel Cormier, 38,000 on the low end, 107,000 on the high end, 493,000 subscribers. This next one, I've talked about them before on my channel many times, kind of a new, channel entering the fray this last year, and that is In the Pocket MMA Live. So In the Pocket has a normal, like a channel before this that did quite well and is very successful, but he has since transitioned into this In the Pocket MMA Live channel. They've accumulated just this past year around 77,900 subscribers, and on the high end, I don't know why the low end's blocked out here, but they're making 131,000 on the high end. You can see the revenue up 70,000 from this past year. So again, very successful. Their last video, which was a while ago, 20 days ago, did 107,000 views. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. One of the newer channels that has entered the fray as well. I've talked about them before. Let's move along to one of the more other news channels based out of Canada, MMA Zone. On the low end, they're 49,000. On the high end, they're 138,000. And 197,000 subscribers there. And keep in mind how I did the order for the top 20 is I took their high end average and ranked them that way. So we're just, again, the numbers can be a little bit skewed a bit, but I'm taking the higher end here at 138,000 as we move along. So they come in at number 16. Okay, getting to number 15, we got Michael Bisping's YouTube channel, which keep in mind is different from the Michael Bisping podcast. That's just his other channel. He has got on the low end from 51,000, on the high end to 143,726 subscribers. Bisping lives in the US now, so he is a very successful channel in this fray. Okay, now we're going to enter the number 14 spot, and that is Freestyle Bender Israel Adesanya. 1.3 million subscribers, $198,000 on the high end of things. And he's another channel, not many of them. He's another channel that his numbers have gone up this year in terms of what he's been able to do. So that's encouraging. I would say the majority of these channels, though, their numbers have actually gone down. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, like I mentioned. So again, Israel Adesanya, 198,000 on the high end. Okay, moving along, we've got MMA Crazy. I actually forgot to add them last year. You always see them at events. They go to all the pay-per-views for the UFC, and I can see why, because they're making some pretty good coin this year. Sorry, that's the 28-day mark. 170,000. So they're making more than Israel Adesanya's channel. Low end, 61,000, high end, 170,000. You can understand why they fly from the UK every year to every single UFC pay-per-view. They get UFC credentials. They're always filming the events. They do a really great job, by the way. So just, got to mention that. But yeah, 170,000, 260,000 subscribers there. Most of us have seen their clips all over social media. Coming in at number 12 is Tom Aspinall. His channel is 181,000 on the high end, 65,000 on the low end, 633,000 subscribers. For a guy that got a lot of hate this year for the eye poke, people seem to be watching him. So again, pretty successful channel there for Tom Aspinall. Okay. Coming in at number 11 is one I think I forgot to put on this list last year, is MMA Weekly. Same sort of thing as MMA Crazy. They go to all the pay-per-views. 197,000 on the high end as far as their revenue, 71,000 on the low end, 887,000 subscribers. MMA Weekly's been around longer than I think most of these channels that we're going to be talking about here. They've been around since like I got into this industry like way back when. So they had a bit of a head start. They were ahead on the YouTube game. So that's part of the reason why they have so many subscribers, because I'm sure there's people watching this going, I don't even know this channel, but they've just been around so long. That's why they continue to get really good views. And again, 887,000 subscribers, very impressive. MMA Weekly based out of the US. Okay, now we are entering into the top 10. MMA Junkie coming in at 430,000 subscribers, 209 on the high end, 75,000 on the low end. And again, their numbers did go down a bit this year. The views went up, but the revenue and the subs went down. Just something to keep in mind. Part of that too is because they post everything, right? They'll post like, the first, fighter at media day to, the main event. So I think, and I've talked about this before, I think that does hurt their channel a little bit. Okay, coming in at number 9 is the Weighing In podcast with Josh Thompson and Big John McCarthy. Low end 79,000, high end 221,000, 125,000 subscribers. Pretty impressive. Like you look at it there, they have way less subscribers than MMA Junkie, but their revenue is a lot higher. Well, not by much, but 209,000 to 221. So something to keep in mind there. As we move along here, going to number 8 is Nina Drama. 222,000 on the high end, 77,000 on the low end, 1.7 million subscribers. So again, subscribers don't mean everything, right, guys? Like keep that in mind. Like Nina Drama has one of the higher subscription rates here, but her revenue is not even in the top 5, who we're going to be talking about a bit here. She comes in the number 8 spot. Instead, coming in at number 7, this is the biggest media outlet of anyone we've talked about, and they were the leader last year as well. The Mac Life, 1.6 million subscribers, 87,000 on the low end, 192,000 on the high end, but you can see their numbers are down, as are their views as well. I've talked about this before. Event coverage is not what it used to be. People just aren't watching enough event coverage these days. So their numbers have suffered as a result of that. Coming in at number 6 is Chael Sonnen. 235,000 on the high end, 84,000 on the low end, 1.3 million subscribers. And again, if you're looking at the red here, that means their numbers have gone down this year. Again, a bit surprising kind of looking back. A guy I forgot last year and got a lot of flack. I'm going to include him in this year. Mohajid, I hope I'm saying that right. Over the last year, his numbers have gone down a bit too, but 289,000 on the high end, 104,000 on the low end. He's based out of the US, 662,000 subscribers. So again, I just mentioned 2 channels back there that had 1 million subscribers, but Mohajid has got less subscribers, but more revenue. So something to keep in mind there. All right, we're entering the top 4. Ariel Helwani coming in at 378,000 on the high end, 136,000 on the low end. A lot of people mock Ariel and say, oh, channel's dying, all this stuff. It's not. The numbers are right here. He's doing quite well, but keep in mind, obviously, he's got a whole staff to pay and everything else. He's got the backing of Yahoo, but he does get very good guests. He's at 378,000 subscribers, and all his numbers have gone up this year, but that makes sense because he's had the channel forever, but made the switch from MMA fighting to his own channel last year. It's been about a year, actually. I think they passed the 1 year mark. So that makes sense that all these views are higher. Look at this though. Views over the last year, 47.8 million. Pretty impressive there for Ariel. Got to give him his flowers there for that channel. Coming in at number 3 is MMA On Point. They've always been one of the highest viewed channels, 1.5 million subscribers, 388,000 338,000 on the high end of revenue, 139,000 on the low end, 173 million view uptick from last year, 53 million overall. Very impressive there. They do sort of like documentary style, like news and all that type of stuff as well. Okay, let's get into the top 3. Don't think it's going to be, well, we're already in the, I just realized I put an extra number on here. So my top 20 is actually top 21. So my apologies there. So all the numbers I've been saying, because I have 3 for MMA On Point and this channel as well. Mighty, Demetrius Johnson, 614,000 on the high end, 220,000 on the low end. 1.5 million subscribers, and all his numbers have gone up exponentially. Part of that too could be the collab with MMA Guru that he had earlier this year. So that could be a reason as well, but he's been getting good interviews and he's continuing to be one of the biggest channels in the MMA space. So got to give a shout out to Demetrius Mighty Mo Johnson. Love to see him doing quite well in this space. Okay, coming in at number 2, not number 1, coming in at number 2 is MMA Guru. $512,000 for the year, $500,000 for the year, $184,000 on the low end, 402,000 subscribers. All his numbers are up here. 69.78 million views, 135,000 subscribers over the last year. He looks like he got 11,000 new subscribers over the last year as well. Again, we always talk about MMA YouTube. You have to talk about MMA Guru, whether you love him or hate him, his numbers speak for themselves. One of the highest earners, and he's making even more than that because you know how much money he's making off donations as well. So MMA Guru, one of the leaders here from the UK, coming in at 402,000 subscribers. And number one, no surprise here, but they're going to be losing a lot come January, and that is ESPN MMA. Look at these numbers here. 2.4 million subscribers, 616,000 on the high end, 220,000 on the low end, but think of how much money they're investing into this thing. But interestingly enough, their subs are down and their views are down, and part of that could be the new TV deal. So they come in at number one. I didn't count the UFC's channel, but we'll just check anyways for the sake of it. They're at 21 million subs. Their overall revenue has been 6 million off YouTube. That's insane. So didn't want to count them because again, it's UFC, right? So 6 million, 2.1 million on the low end. They are at 1.74 billion views, 21 million subscribers. Pretty incredible there with the UFC. Okay, let's talk about some that didn't make the top 20 or top 21, because again, I messed up the list. For some reason, I had both of these at number 3, like I said. So Full Mount shouldn't have made top 20. Jackson should have made top 20. Doesn't matter though. Well, I felt it's good to go over that. Okay, so a couple ones that made just outside the top 20. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I know there's going to be some here you guys are wondering about. So let me just close some of these windows here. Otherwise, I'd be crashing my computer with all the tabs I'd need to have open. So Anatomy of a Fighter, that's one that just made outside the top. Well, technically, Full Mount MMA would have been outside the top 20, but coming just slightly below that is Anatomy of a Fighter, based out of the US. Will Harris, one of my favorite people in this industry. He made on the high end 104,000, on the low end 37,000. Shortly after that, you've got Alex Volkanovski at 91,000 and on the high end, 32,000 on the low end. The Overdogs podcast, 74,000 on the high end, 26,000 on the low end. MMA World is 62,000 on the high end, 22,000 on the low end. Sean O'Malley was down. I think Sean O'Malley took some time off. That's why his numbers are a bit lower. I'll just show them to you here. It doesn't matter. So Sean O'Malley came in a little bit lower than this. He came in at, as we're waiting for it to load, I think it's Sugar Sean O'Malley is what I'm looking for here. And again, you guys can find these numbers out all yourself if you're interested in seeing what's out there. So there we go. Almost 1 million subscribers. His overall revenue, though, 62,000, 22,000 on the low end. His numbers are down this year overall, and I think part of that is because he took a bit of a break. Another one that I'm sure people are wondering about, just made this cut of like the 60K mark, is Luke Thomas. He came in at 61,000 on the high end, 22,000 on the low end. One other one I wanted to mention that I didn't include in this list because he's become more of a political channel, he was on our list last year, is Jesse on Fire. Just want to show you his numbers just to give you guys an idea. Again, Jesse on Fire is more political stuff though now, but look at his subscribers, almost 500,000. And his revenue, 273,000 on the high end, 98,000 on the low end. Just wanted to mention him because some people will ask me. Okay, there's two channels that surprised me a bit that I didn't mention, and one of them is on the thumbnail. And I don't know if the view stats has got the stats wrong on this. I'm not sure. I figured these numbers would be higher if you go look at his overall videos. But Bedtime MMA didn't make the top 20. They have his revenue slightly lower. And I remember last year they did the same thing. But if you look at it there, his revenue is only 38,000 on the high end, 11,000 on the low end. That could be wrong, but I mean, I'm looking at his videos here, and if you just take a quick look at his channel, most of his videos are doing like close to 100,000 views a video, almost there, or close to it anyways. So maybe it is like that. I'm not sure, but yeah, I know people are going to ask me about Bedtime MMA. According to them, he's only made 40,000 this year, which is still incredible, but I figured he might have made the top 20. Okay, another one I didn't mention that you're probably going to be like, where are these guys on the grand scheme of things? How about MMA Fighting? Now, this makes sense because MMA Fighting lost Ariel Helwani last year, so they weren't doing their weekly show. Overall revenue this year, look how low they're down. 45,000 on the high end, 13,000 on the low end. Now, they're not going to every event like they used to, so they've cut back on events, and Ariel Helwani's not there, but all the numbers across the boards have been down like a lot. Like even like look at an interview with Anderson Silva 9 hours ago at 848 views at 1.7 million subscribers. So again, subscribers aren't everything, guys, right? Like a lot of people talk about like, oh, you got big subscribers, but your views are low. It's what people want to watch at the end of the day. And unfortunately, interviews just aren't viewing like they used to. So those are some more. Okay, let's get to another one I know I'm going to get asked about. People asked me about this last year. What about the Weasel? The Weasel's got to be up there, right? Top 20. Again, 381,000 subscribers, but according to view stats, only made 60,000 this year. So he's outside that 100K range, 58 on the high end, 18K on the low end. Okay. Some other ones I'll mention that are in this below 50 K tier, but are, or sorry, not below 50K, below 60K tier. So I'll mention some other ones that are similar numbers here. You've got the Weasel. Full Send MMA is 19K on the low end, 57K on the high end. Pound for Pound with Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo is 20K on the low end, 50K to the high end. Submission Radio is 15K on the low end, 43K on the high end. MMA Experts is 16K on the low end, 46K on the high end. GK, who does some kind of interesting content, he is 16K on the low end, 44K on the high end. Lucas Tracy, this is one I thought would be in our top 20, but I think part of it is because he's kind of like retired twice, right? Over the last year. And he, doesn't do as much content as he used to. But if we go look up Lucas Tracy right now, again, you guys can see it for yourself. His revenue was only 41,000 this year, 12,000 on the low end, 161,000 subscribers. So again, didn't make over that 60K one. A couple other ones we'll just go through quickly, because if I go through every single one, it's going to take forever. I don't want to bore you guys. Overdogs Podcast, 15K on the low end, 41K on the high end. The Schmo, 14K on the low end, 39K on the high end. Tim Welch, Sean O'Malley's coach, 12K on the low end, 33K on the high end. We've also got We Want Picks, 10K on the low end, 29K on the high end. Hopero MMA, someone that I've talked about a bunch on my channel, 8K on the low end, 28K on the high end. Excellent MMA, which is one of these channels that steals content, 12K on the low end, 28K on the high end. Michael Bisping's podcast, not his actual channel, those numbers have dropped too. I'll just show you this one quickly. Again, I'm not going to go through every one here, but you can see 217,000 subscribers, 7K on the low end, 21K on the high end. Again, so more in that 20K range. Ronin MMA, 6.1K on the low end, 16K on the high end. Victor MMA, 6.1K on the low end, 16K on the high end. And Kombat IQ, a channel I never heard of, they're 2.8K on the low end, 11K on the high end. Okay, now before we round things out, I'm going to talk about some of the lower end channels, and then I'll talk about ones that had like weird data for some reason. So we'll go through those. People are going to ask me, they're going to be like, what's your channel number? All right, well, I'll tell you guys. And I don't even mind sharing the numbers. You can kind of see it there. 60,000 subscribers, 3.7K on the low end, 10K on the high end. I will say these numbers are fairly accurate. I'll just say that. And again, I got no shame. All the numbers across the board, like I've shown you here today, have been down. If we look at some other similar channels, MMA Global, which steals content all the time and basically stole my pros picks idea, but did it differently by stealing fighter predictions and actually putting them on their channel. They're in a similar spot, 3K on the low end, 9.8K on the high end. So they're below me, even though I'm actually putting out real content. Red Corner MMA, this one surprised me. I think these numbers are messed up because again, I got asked about them last year too. They have a pretty high subscriber rate, 884K subs, but look at this revenue. So I don't know what's up with that. 1.7K, 6.1K on the low end, and their last video did 210K. So something's up with that. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they're demonetizing them for some reason. I'm not sure, but all their numbers are down. But if you here, you know what? Let's even look at their channel just quickly. Well, we got some time here. I feel like all their videos are popping. So this is what I mean. It's not 100% accurate, but Red Corner was a bit surprising for me, but I think all of them are doing, yeah. Well, okay, some of them are not doing as well as I thought. Like you got a, Cormier one that's almost at 700,000, but then on the low end, you've got like a, 7,000 video on Henry Cejudo here. So they do great work though. So just wanted to highlight them as well. Some other ones that are kind of in this sort of lower than 10K category. I'll go through them quickly here. Helen Yee is 1.9K to 6.2K. Full Violence started doing video content this year without stealing it. 1.5K to 5K. Vampire Legs, 1.5K to 5K. Fight Fairy, 2.8K total. And Fight Disciples was in the hundreds, which I thought was interesting. Okay, a couple before we go that I wanted to mention. The Fighting Business. I know they had some issues with another channel and they had to take down some content. They have a high subscriber rate and their views do pretty well, but something's messed up with their revenue. Cause look at it here. They're in like the negative. So it says negative 68.1 to 189.1. So something's messed up there with their numbers. I don't know what's going on there. Cause I know they had to take some videos down and they lost numbers. So I'm not sure. I can't get an accurate read on this channel, but they're interesting as well. Same with this Paul Stryker ENG, who I mentioned last year. I don't watch his content that much, but again, 214,000 subs, but they're, again, same thing. They're in the negative. So something's up with that channel too. Same with MMA Talk. They also had some weird numbers. That's another like news channel that for some reason was a bit lower here. This one here, 323,000 subs, but then they're also like minus numbers here. So I don't know what's going on with that. They're another weird one. So yeah, there we go. That's pretty much everything I could kind of cover here. We did about 20 minutes. Let me just do a quick summary of some of the stuff I wanted to talk about here. So again, not 100% accurate data here, just a fun exercise going through all the different MMA channels. But like I said, you looked at a lot of those channels, a lot of them are in the red in terms of the views going down. I've said this before, one of the big lessons, kind of the overall with MMA YouTube this year, we know the hate content views well. In the Pocket's one of the channels that's their entire business model, is going after other fighters and stuff like that. That content does seem to view quite well. Interview content in general has gone down. Event coverage has gone down. Even a channel like the Mac Life, which I think still is the leader as far as event coverage, their numbers have been down a little bit too. So what this tells me is I think people are not watching YouTube stuff as much. They're watching more of the creators. They're watching more live streams. They're not watching your traditional interviews or media day stuff. That's what those numbers tell me as well. Especially with like Mac Life and MMA Fighting. And like I said, I think a lot of this has to do with the clipping sites, the sites that grab the content, put it on Instagram, put it on Twitter. I think that's hurt it as well. And I'm curious to see where the future lies with MMA YouTube. Obviously, YouTube's a huge platform. There's more channels than ever. Like, I feel like every year I go through this, there's always a new channel entering the fray, but something to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at everything there. So if there was any channels in this video I missed, I did my best, guys. Remember, stuff like, the Wade Concept as an example, like he doesn't do that much MMA, so I didn't really put him in the MMA category. There were some that I didn't want to include in this, just like the UFC's channel. So let me know if there's a channel I did miss that was super obvious that I didn't cover. And if you got any questions or anything you want to ask, I just find this stuff interesting. Nobody else is really covering MMA YouTube from sort of a news standpoint. So this is something I enjoy doing and kind of looking at the different trends and topics and all that. And if this is something you want me to do more often, maybe look at this maybe every quarter of the year as opposed to every end of the year, let me know in the comments. Would love to hear from you guys. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. You can see the little pop up there. And I'm always trying to put new content on this channel every single day. And I'm trying to find unique content for you guys. Again, YouTube's so crowded in the MMA space. So this is why I'm doing videos like this. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll talk to you guys soon, and I'll see you next time.